Congressman Peter Hoekstra. He's a Republican. He was the past chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Nice to have you back, Congressman Hoekstra.
Hey, good to be with you. Thank you, Jim.
So let me begin with Trump's tweet. Not the first time you've seen it today. Great move on delay by V. Putin. I always knew he was very smart. I have to ask you this. Why does the president-elect insist on praising a leader who we know has committed atrocities within his own country and across the world?
Well, I think he's just making a very clear statement and distinguishing between the behavior of the United States, of the President of the United States, that made a petty decision yesterday with the decision to expel 35 Russians from the United States, and saying, you know, the better behavior is that modeled by President Putin. Putin didn't
what better behavior? What better behavior did he demonstrate by hacking the U.S. election, annexing Crimea, backing a stealth invasion of Ukraine, violating negotiated U.S.-Russian nuclear weapons treaties? How is that model behavior?
That's not model behavior. But Donald Trump was talking specifically about the decision that Putin made last night, this morning, not to get into a tit-for-tat with President Obama. He recognizes the bad behavior of Putin in Crimea, Ukraine, and all of these types of things. He also understands the wild west of cybersecurity, this new cyber warfare, this new cyberspace or battlefield, better than President Obama. He recognizes it's important. But he also recognizes...
How does he know it better? Because what's interesting here, Congressman Hoekstra, is that Donald Trump and his closest circle of advisors are isolated, not opposed to the Democrats and the Obama administration, but virtually the leadership of their entire party. The House Speaker, Republican, the House Majority Leader, Republican, senior Senate Republicans pushing for even stronger sanctions against Russia. They all say Russia hacked the election and the U.S. needs even stronger responses. You have a president-elect who was not even granted the premise that Russia was behind this cyber attack.
Well, let's start at the beginning here. We all know that espionage is something that the United States engages in versus Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Snowden even demonstrated that we do this against people like like the Germans and the French. They do it back to us. This is going on each and every day. It's the espionage business. It's no different than what it's been for the last 40 or 50 years. In cyber, it's a whole new battlefield. The rules are not that well written, and it's much easier to go after tremendous amounts of information with a much lower risk profile in cyber than what you ever saw in the old James Bond films and movies. And so Donald Trump understands that. And what Donald Trump, when he comes into office, what he'll do is he'll sit down with the folks and Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate and develop a cyber strategy that will keep America safe and secure, a battlefield that President Obama has ignored for the last 8 years.
I just wonder, because as you know, there are many countries that have tremendous cyber capabilities, not just Russia, China. We've seen it with China, North Korea, Iran. Right. Why would those countries look at what Russia's interference in this election, see a president-elect who is saying we should let bygones be bygones, move on to bigger, better things? He has given no indication of punishment for Russia. Why would those other nations, including Russia, look at that and be deterred at all from attacking the U.S. Via cyber means again?
What the Russians did with the political campaign, and the report that came out from the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI this week was pathetic in trying to create a compelling case that the Russians influenced. All it said is the Russians most likely hacked into a political party's database, into their cyberspace. They most likely extracted or exfiltrated tremendous amounts of information, and most likely they leaked it to media for public disclosure. That's it. They didn't get into motive, they didn't get into intent or anything like that.
That's quite a throwaway line there, Congressman Hoekstra, because I'm an American, and I listen to that. I hear foreign actor hacked into political organizations in the U.S., and they strategically leaked it out during an election campaign, and I hear that whether it's Republican or Democrat or any party, that sounds to me like something serious. Are you saying that that's just, heck, it's another part of this Wild West in the cyberspace, and we as a country should let that pass?
I'm not saying we should let it pass. Remember, Snowden clearly demonstrated that the United States hacked into Angela Merkel's cell phone, and we were listening to her conversations. So no, what happens in cyber is very, very important. We need to be very conscious of that. But the thing that we need to take away from this,
the U.S. didn't leak those conversations every day leading up to a crucial German election. I mean, this is the difference here. I find it's just odd for an American to be equating its own actions with the actions of a foreign adversary to justify them.
Jim, if you don't believe that we have gathered information from the Russians in cyberspace,
I'm not talking about the gathering. I'm not talking about the gathering. I'm talking about the selective use of it in the context of a campaign and targeting. Let's be frank, targeting one party during that campaign. That's the difference. The U.S. And here's the thing. I mean, there are distinctions in the cyberspace. Look at China, for instance. China, the U.S., I'm sure, hacks China. China hacks the U.S. But China hacks U.S. companies, steals intellectual property, and uses it for economic gain. The U.S. does not do that, okay? You know, and with Russia, I'm sure, yes, the U.S. hacks Russia. And, yes, it's true, the U.S. was eavesdropping on leaders of foreign allies, but it didn't take the step that the U.S. intelligence community says that Russia takes, and that your Republican colleagues, such as the Grahams and the McCains of the world, and Paul Ryan and McConnells of the world say that Russia did. I mean, is that not a different action?
Right. Jim, the American public, you and I do not know what the American intelligence community has done with information that we may have successfully exfiltrated from the Russians, and where we may have used that to damage their national interest, whether it's in their homeland, whether it's in Syria, or whether it's at some of their relationships with their allies.
Yeah, but is that your job?
Senator McCain,
is that your job? Is that the president's job to say, well, heck, we're just as bad as all the other folks? I mean, isn't it the president's job to put U.S. national security and the strength and defense of its systems, including its election systems, at the forefront?
Absolutely, and this is where President Obama has absolutely failed. He has not made cyber of our government institutions, of the private sector. He has not made it a priority of his administration. And I've talked with people on the transition team, and I'm fairly confident, I'm very confident, that Donald Trump is going to make cybersecurity a very much a priority for our military, for our political system, and for our private sector, because he understands the vulnerabilities. That is something that President Obama has never understood, or not even put a strategy in place to try to protect America's national security and Americans' national interest in cyberspace. This is exactly where the Obama administration has failed. You're exactly making my point.
Congressman Hoekstra, it's a fair point. We appreciate you taking the time for a second time this week. Thanks for coming.